Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to be looking at guides and tools and resources that you can use to improve your Forge of Empires game. Some of these guides are the same exact guides that I read and saw and used when I first started playing, and they made a huge difference in how quickly I was able to advance and improve as a player. The first one that I want to get into straight away is the Lord of War Advanced Guide. Now, the only downside to this guide is that it's a little bit dated. The last update was in 2018, so obviously there's a lot of things that have changed since this guide was written. Specifically, the battlegrounds has changed, the ages have changed, the attack power that you can get from event buildings has changed, the forge points that you get from buildings has changed some. So there's definitely stuff about this that is dated, but there's a lot of stuff about it that is extremely good. I'm not going to hit all the points, but I am going to point out a few of these things, primarily because these are, again, some of the things that I was exposed to almost immediately after I began playing the game, and it made it so that I was able to develop significantly faster. And I encourage all of my friends, all of my guildmates to, if nothing else, read this guide to get a really good building point for an understanding for the game. So there's chapters on great buildings, which I mostly agree with. There's a few I disagree with. I'm going to do a whole guide on great buildings later. Fair trade, and this this guy has the same point of view as I do, which is that fair trade is kind of a bogus idea, and that it's kind of hard to have a true fair trade value because certain ages goods are worth a lot more. Like future, people want those goods. Virtual future, people want those goods. Whereas other ages, it's not as popular. Like modern, for instance, you don't have a whole lot of people fighting over modern goods. Happiness. This was a really interesting piece because it talked about the calculations for St. Mark's Basilica and LOA and Raw and how they are affected by the base versus the bonuses. And at high end, this really isn't like once you actually reach higher ages, it's not as important. But especially while you're aging up, this is a lot more important. City layout. This is really useful for getting an idea of how to minimize the amount of road that you have, because that's actually one of the biggest areas that you can gain space in your city. Resource usage. I don't remember what that is. I think that's all about great building leveling, forge points exchange, same thing. I've done a couple videos already about the using 1.9 threads and not doing swap threads, and I've got more to come. But he does a really good job of breaking that down. Diamond cities. He explains some of the stuff that I've also explained about making wishing well farms and things of that nature. Let's see. GBG Foundation or GVG versus Foundations. This is actually a really good guide. And he does have a spot where he talks about armies on GVG, and those are a little bit outdated because attack power has changed a lot, and that's made it so that certain units that used to be stronger are not nearly as strong, and units that weren't as strong tend to do a lot better. For example, artillery is a lot stronger now when you can have 500 or 1,000 attack, whereas when your attack might have only been 100, that artillery didn't work as well. So that part has changed some, but the foundational concepts are still super valuable. This high efficiency forge point configurations for cities. Now, on one hand, this is dated. It's, I mean, like when the Indian Palace set was considered your most dense forge point producer, that tells you how dated this is. But it's actually worth looking at to get an idea of the type of creative configurations you can use, especially for sets, to maximize even more. And let's see. The arc, this is showing how much less you have to spend if you have arc bonuses and if you're using like a 1.9 thread versus a versus just swaps or whatever. And they have another tool that kind of goes on that as well. So again, here it's got the GVG headquarters and defense bonuses. That's has to do with the support pool. That's pretty interesting. If you're a leader, it's probably not as interesting if you're not really into GVG. So that just kind of gives you an idea, and then kind of going down through the rest of the list. The down trading is really useful for learning how to maximize your goods productions. Sabotage, I actually don't really particularly care for. It's about infiltrating other guilds and just being shady. So I'm not really a fan of that, and I kind of look down on that. Large scale great building leveling, that's really just focusing on efficiency with using arc and other leveling tactics. Sniping aggressor, that's actually a really interesting one. That gets into the topic of doing what they call third sniping, which is instead of giving a full 1.9 or doing even 50% and 25% to lock buildings, two players going in at 1/3 and essentially locking the building. And it is a really obnoxious way to cost the great building owner extra forge points. So I am not a big fan of that. The guilds on our server that do that are hated, but it is a tactic that can be used. And then obviously Chateau, and I gave a video on how to maximize Chateau and use recurring quest. So that kind of gives you some data behind it. Anyhow, if you just Google LOW Advanced Guide Forge of Empires, you'll get this, and I'll also put a link to it in the description below. This guide is really handy. Even if it's a little bit dated, it will give you a really great foundation. And if you follow it, you're not going wrong. The next one is FoE hints. Most of you, if you're on YouTube, have already seen this guy because he's everywhere. And his videos aren't quite as in-depth as some of the things that I'll do. It doesn't run as many calculations and things of that nature, but it is just a really good, consistent resource, especially for new things that are coming out. So English isn't his first language, so he just doesn't kind of have the personality that you might have with somebody like me. But overall, the content is really good, so I can't help but recommend FoE hints as a tool to use. FoE tools on GitHub. Now this actually has quite a few useful pieces. The main ones that I think are particularly useful are things like this GB investment tool, and this can be used to help to figure out padding and things of that nature. So the way you would work this is you would say, all right, we're taking the Alcatraz, we're going from level 54 to 55. We've got a 90% bonus because it's a 1.9 thread, and it'll tell you what the rewards are, what the reward rate is, how much you as the great building owner have to put before the contributors have to place points. So here for 1 and 2, you don't have to do anything. You just open it up and players will take those spots. Then you add 126, and then third is lockable, and on down the list. And the really handy part for this is if you're posting buildings, you can use these little copy things. Typically, I see a lot of people going with from 5th to 1st, and that's really just a courtesy for mobile players because it's easy to copy and paste this and then just delete the last place that needs to be filled. It's just a little bit easier versus if you put it in this order where it's 1st to 5th, then a mobile player has to kind of get their cursor over here to delete this out. And it's not a big deal, but again, that really just has to do with how you run your thread, and it's more of a personal preference than an actual necessity. So that's a really cool tool. One of the other tools I like on this, okay, your trade tool. This is your fair trade calculator. Now, I'm not a huge fair trade calculator person, but it's definitely nice to know some of the fair trade options. Personally, I like the Wild Gunner fair trade a little bit better, which is 3 to 2 for 1 age of refined goods, and then 2 to 1 for 2 ages. So for example, if you were going from contemporary to modern, you would do 1 contemporary for 2 modern, or if you're going from contemporary to postmodern, you'd do 1 contemporary for 1.5 postmodern. So like 100 for 150. This one is a little bit different, but regardless, if you're using this, chances are your trades are going to get taken, especially on the open market. Another one that I think is really interesting, even if it doesn't really change how you play, just for kind of seeing how much of a difference it makes. What this is, or what this shows, is the cost savings that you get from using ARC to level your buildings. So this is using a 1.9% going from level 0 to level 100, and you can see this this top one would be the cost to level the great building just without, just total. This is the cost per level. And then this cost right here, this purple one, is the cost to the great building owner if you're getting a 90%, if you're getting 1.9, basically. And it's really interesting because you can see what I like to call the sweet spot, and other people call it the danger spot because it means that you can be sniped. But if you look, it gets really cheap between like 30 and 60 or so. And that's consistent for most great buildings. Obviously, there's certain great buildings where that's considerably lower and others where it's considerably higher. Generally speaking, postmodern, contemporary, tomorrow, and future tend to have the sweet spot. And then as you start getting up into like your virtual and space age, it starts getting even the sweet spot isn't that sweet. I mean, even in the sweet spot, you're looking at spending almost over 300 points for a level. So it's still useful to kind of get an idea of what your cost is going to be. And it also shows this major ramp up going up to 10 and then how it kind of drops off. So that's one of the big reasons why we always advocate to our players that once, obviously you get most of your bonus up to 10, and then after that you get smaller bonuses. But instead of stopping here like in the 30s, where you're basically, you've gone through you've done all the hard lifting and the heavy lifting, going from 10 to 31 is going to cost you more than going from 31 to 60. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. And then, so that's this tool. Again, it's the FoE tools on GitHub, and it's pretty useful. This next one is called Nodge.Python Anywhere, and this is just another great building calculator. And I don't know that it's necessarily, it doesn't provide anything that other one doesn't. I just find it to be a little bit faster as a reference. It's a little bit, for me, it's a little bit easier to just kind of punch in some numbers. So if I wanted to know, hey, how much is it going to cost for me to level my NO from level 0 to 61 using a 1.9, I can see that it's 12,000 forge points. And then you can see here, these green ones are where the building is lockable as soon as you unlock it. And that's going to be useful to help you to prevent from being sniped and having people either third snipe you or hit you with like 50% and 25% for your first and second place. And again, it's just useful. Now, it doesn't show you for third. And on some of these buildings, especially like your ARC and your NO, your third place is actually lockable literally as soon as you open it. So definitely keep that in mind. Look, this is crazy. Like at level 48 going to 49, it only cost 35 forge points to level. And then look at this, from 45 to 46 for your innovation tower, 21 points to level. It's literally free if you get 1.9 because you get more points from your collection than what it actually costs to level. It is just, Inno is just such an easy building to level. All right. And then the last tool, and probably kind of one of the newest on the radar, is the FoE helper. And I've become a really big fan of FoE helper. It is exclusive to browser-based. It does not work for your app. So keep that in mind because this isn't going to be this is not going to be relevant for you if you don't use the browser. Now it is made by a German developer, so there's going to be a little bit of wording that's a little bit different than what you would expect. So I'm going to jump here into my city real quick to show you what it is. I'll get that collected and I'll spend it later. Actually, here's a good example. So you've got several tools. One that I really like is what they call this co-payment calculator. And what this tells you is how much you have to add to your buildings for people to lock the places. And it's really just a convenience thing. So here for my CDM, it's saying that for me to level it, I have to spend a total of almost 2,000 forge points of my own contribution. And then for me to make it so that first place can be locked, I need to add 1,072 forge points. I'm just going to go ahead and drop those points in, and then it updates and it shows how much I've spent and how much is left to be added before first and second can be locked. And that I find to be really handy for just quick references. Now, another one of the tools, which is getting really popular, especially for people who do a lot of sniping and a lot of contributing, is this cost calculator. And what it does is it tells you if there are opportunities for you to snipe some of these buildings. And here you can see I pulled this up and it's telling me that this Castle Delmont is in a range where it's unlocked, and because there's zero points already added, it tells me that I have the potential to make 21 forge points on this building. So I can come in here to his Castle Delmont, and then I have the cost calculator, and it's telling me that at 1.9 it is 779 points to lock it, and that was like, say that was my guildmate. But for actually sniping, like, so just locking the position at the least amount possible, I have to pay 772. Okay, so there. Now I've locked at 772, and I don't have, and I'm clear. I'm good. So that means I'm going to make a 21 forge point profit when this particular building levels, which that's super handy. And you can just go through your whole friends list and your whole neighborhood to help find places that there are profitable options. Now, actually, I'll pull this back up real quick. So let's see. It's saying that the Cape is another one to have a look at. Now, if you look here, it looks like a couple of people already got first and second. But look, it looks like I can grab third. So, oh no, it looks like I can still grab second. Holy moly! Well, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll do my 330, and there. See, and it told me that there was a chance to make forge points, and now I was able to make almost 40 forge points off of that building. So this is a really handy tool, especially if you're not super strong at math and you're not really familiar with the calculations. This helps you to knock out a lot of those calculations, and it can help to save you a lot of effort and time. All right, and that one's not profitable. You see, if I were to lock this building, it would cost me I would lose 8 forge points. Now, if he were to add 13 forge points, then I would be able to lock the building at 1.9. And that's useful for, like, say you have a guildmate who's posting a building and they want to know how much they need a pad for you to lock. You can say, hey, I'll add 295, that's 1.9, but you need to add 13 forge points before I do that, or I'm not locked in. So that can, again, that's also helpful sometimes when people don't have their own calculators available. So there's a few other really handy tools. One I like is this event quest line. It tells you what the upcoming items, quests are in the event. That's super handy. For the technologies, this one is one that's really handy. I'll actually jump to another city to show this one. But here you can see it tells you exactly how many forge points are needed, how many coins, how many supplies, what the goods are that you are required for completing the research. And I find that to be really handy for planning ahead when you're trying to age up. And then one of the other ones that I really like is the city overview. And this is really handy for finding places where you can add stuff. Like, I hadn't noticed, but it looks like right here, I've got a little spot where I could put in something else. Like if I wanted to put a blacksmith or another archer in right here, I could. Obviously, I've got a little bit of space here and some space over here. And, that could be just having moved stuff around. But this is, again, really handy for looking for opportunities where you can maximize your space, or if you see an area where buildings have too many, have road on both sides of them in ways that is unnecessary. This can be really good for finding, again, those little niche spots where you're kind of wasting road and you could, in theory, fit more than what you have. Actually, here's another example where I could move this Royal Marble Gateway up. I could delete these 2 blocks, move this up, and then that would give me a spot right here where I could potentially fit another blacksmith or another archer or something like that. So actually, heck, I'll even do it right now just to kind of give you an idea what something like that would look like. So and we fill archers in AA just to irritate the guild that we're fighting, because frankly they're just trying to farm us now because the war is over. Here we go, and I move that there, and now I can put this archer in right here, if it'll go right there, and then attach some road, and there, now I have an extra archer that wasn't there before. So boom, look, that overview just showed me 2 more places to put archers. Oh, it doesn't update it only updates when you log in. So if you want to see a new update, you have to log out and then log back in to see that. So anyhow, and then the last one that you might find useful is the Armies. And that just tells you how many units you have and when to expect units to be coming. And again, a lot of this is just planning things and whatnot. So these are some of the tools that are really good and really useful. Oh, actually, that reminded me. There is one other neat thing on, actually there's a couple more neat things on this FoE helper. One is the negotiation tool. It gives you the actual button sequence to negotiate, and it's pretty handy. Now, I had a friend open a ticket with Forge of Empires and ask them if FoE helper was allowed. And their response was that it's a third-party tool, so they don't manage it. It's not necessarily against FoE policy, but they can't control the quality of whatever it is that's being offered. So say this tool were to be stealing personal data or were a virus or something like that, their FoE is washing their hands of any sort of responsibility for anything of that nature. So here is kind of the handy thing that tells you how long until your Traz pops. Here it'll show you your unit count, which again, rather than having to scroll all the way to the end and switch to the ages and all that stuff, you can see how many units you have, and it's not too shabby for a secondary world that is. You see, it's a diamond farm. And then the last one was the research. So not trade, we're doing research and not event quest line. Man, I'm clicking all the wrong stuff. So here we see that I'm in postmodern, and it tells me that I'm short on forge points by 1,000 forge points. And it tells me that I need more renewable resources, more steel, more semiconductors, industrial filters, and genome data. But it looks like I have all of the other necessary stuff. Now, what I've actually found this to be especially useful for is going up in an age. Like here, now I'm looking at what it's going to take for contemporary. And as I go through and I get to the end of postmodern, I can look and make sure that I have enough postmodern goods already produced before I move up to contemporary. And again, that's just to help plan ahead and make sure that you don't get in over your head. All right, video's gone almost 20, it's over 20 minutes, 22 minutes. It's time to shut this thing down. But I hope that you have found these tools to be as useful as I have found them. And I'm going to go ahead again and put links in the description below for you to have access to these. And if you have any questions about the tools, about the resources, please leave questions and comments below. Also, if you found any of these tools useful or helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this video. I really appreciate all of the support that I've been getting. I can't believe that I'm already over 200 subscribers, and I'm just going to see how quick we can get to 1,000. Anyhow, I'll answer questions, post them below. Take care, guys.